Welcome to the deep dive. We're really glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely.
So let me start by asking you a question, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself as you think about the answer here. Have you ever looked at a screaming, crying, red-faced baby, maybe your own, or maybe one just, sitting 2 rows behind you on an airplane?
Oh, we've all been there.
Right, and you just wished it came with a mute button, or maybe a pause button.
Just for a minute.
Exactly, just for 15 minutes so you could catch your breath, let the migraine subside, and remember what actual silence sounds like. I mean, it's a thought people really don't like to admit at dinner parties, but it is a deeply, universally human one.
It is deeply human, yeah.
Yeah.
The fatigue of parenting is basically an ancient struggle, but when you start to really interrogate that specific desire, the desire for a digital override of a biological reality,
Yeah.
you open up this massive psychological Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Because you have to ask yourself, what if you actually could pause your child? What if you could mute their distress and perfectly regulate your own exposure to their needs with just, the press of a virtual button?
Right.
We really have to look at what that fundamental shift in control does to the very nature of parenthood. I mean, does it strip away the sacrifice that traditionally defines the parental bond? Or does it just modernize an experience that has always been rooted in survival?
And that profound, really uncomfortable tension is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're doing a sort of psychological autopsy on the fascinating, terrifying, and completely unfiltered world of John Marr's The Family Experiment.
It's quite a world.
It really is. Now, I know you are likely already familiar with the basic premise of Reborn and the Meta Babies, the monthly subscriptions, the highly advanced haptics.
Right, the base.
Yeah. But reading through our stack of source material today, and we have the launch night teleprompter scripts, the public chat logs, the official welcome pack, all this behind-the-scenes documentation, what really struck me is the underlying language of total commodification.
Oh, absolutely.
Our mission here isn't just to recap the events of this reality show. We want to look at how human beings behave when the consequences of life and death, of love and neglect, are turned into a highly structured, gamified spectacle.
Precisely. We are synthesizing these sources to understand the societal shifts this technology represents. If you look closely at the official welcome pack materials, the framing is just brilliant from a marketing standpoint.
But chilling, right?
Completely chilling from a sociological one.
Yeah.
The Reborn advertisement explicitly asks, and this is a quote, "Why leave it to chance or genetics when you can have the perfect baby you've always dreamed of?"
Wow.
Yeah. It caters to a society that just craves the emotional reward of deep connection, but without the messy, unpredictable, and often painful reality of actual human relationships.
Right, because the level of customization is staggering. You don't just pick eye color and hair color. You can customize the speed of their growth. You can even freeze a child at a certain age so they never grow past the toddler phase if you don't want them to. They even offer services to reanimate a lost loved one. And you get all of this total godlike control for a deposit and a $19.99 monthly subscription fee.
Which is wild.
It equates the value of a human experience to a premium streaming service.
Which is exactly why the premise of the Family Experiment reality show works so effectively as this psychological pressure cooker.
Yeah.
The producers take this illusion of absolute control and they just weaponize it against the participants.
Yeah, they do.
We have 11 childless British contestants.
Oh.
They're given 9 months to raise a meta child, but with the accelerated growth feature locked in. So month 1's a newborn, month 3 it's a 2-year-old toddler. By month 9, it's an 18-year-old adult.
And we really have to emphasize the hardware here because it's crucial to understanding everything that eventually goes wrong. They aren't just staring at a monitor and clipping a mouse like a computer game.
No, not at all.
The intended parents are locked into full virtual reality headsets, masks, and full-body haptic suits that basically function like a second skin.
The tech is incredibly advanced.
Right. The haptics are so advanced that they feel everything. If the virtual baby has a fever, the suit projects that radiant heat right onto the parent's chest. They feel the weight of the child, the heartbeat, the subtle rise and fall of breath.
Yeah.
The sensory input is entirely designed to trick the brain's limbic system into believing the code is flesh and blood.
And then we introduce the incentive structure. The winners receive £250,000. The producers explicitly state this is the estimated cost of raising a real-world child from birth to age 18.
But there's a catch.
A huge catch. The twisted genius of the final choice really cannot be overstated. If a couple wins, they can keep the money and their meta child. Or they can choose to permanently delete their virtual child. literally pulling the plug on an entity they have raised and loved through a simulated 18 years, in exchange for £250,000 to start a real-world family through IVF, surrogacy, or adoption.
It's brutal. It effectively forces them to decide if their love was real or just a means to an end. It's an emotional torture device dressed up as primetime entertainment.
That's a great way to put it.
And the pressure of that setup breaks people down almost immediately. Which brings us to Rufus Green and his partner Kitty Carter. Their story with their meta-baby, Olivia, perfectly illustrates the terrifying dynamic between the contestants and the viewing public. Because the audience isn't just watching.
No, they are actively driving the narrative. The mechanics of the audience interaction are fascinating. The public watches these feeds 24 hours a day. Viewers at home can award red hearts to show approval or black hearts to show disapproval, and these literally float across the parents' visors in real time.
Just constant judgment.
Constant, unavoidable metric of public judgment. But more importantly, the audience votes for monthly challenges. They have a direct hand in introducing chaos into the simulation.
Right, and looking at the chat logs and the voting data from month 1, the audience actively chooses cruelty. They vote for baby Olivia to contract croup.
Yeah, that was dark.
Think about that. You have millions of people sitting in their comfortable living rooms, pressing a button on their phones to intentionally inflict a distressing respiratory illness on an infant, simply because they want to see how the parents react. They gamify the suffering of this family. I would argue that it exposes a deeply disturbing hypocrisy in the audience's collective behavior. They demand high-stakes drama, and they actively manufacture an environment of extreme stress. But when Rufus, who is suffering from intense, compounded sleep deprivation in both the virtual world and the real world, begins to crack under that exact pressure, the audience completely abandons their complicity.
Oh, instantly.
They rain down black hearts and moral outrage. They condemn the father for breaking under the very conditions they deliberately engineered.
The breakdown itself is incredibly visceral to read about. The sources describe Rufus at 3 in the morning in his dimly lit virtual nursery. In the real world, we know he is wearing a headache patch. His physical body is exhausted. Virtual Olivia has been screaming relentlessly with this croup that the audience gave her. Now, the show does give parents that pause button we talked about earlier, a 15-minute mute per month. Rufus uses it out of sheer desperation. But the second that timer hits 0, the audio comes back, and the screaming is even louder, more piercing. And this is where the hardware you mentioned earlier becomes the antagonist. He tries to soothe her, but the haptic suit ensures he doesn't just hear a looping audio file of a computer glitch. The suit constricts. It generates heat.
He feels it all.
He feels a screaming, rigid, red-faced infant fighting against his chest. The biological imperatives triggered by a baby's cry, the spike in cortisol, the activation of the fight-or-flight response are fully engaged. The cognitive line between a digital avatar and a living, suffering being completely dissolves in his exhausted mind.
He just snaps. The feed captures him, holding the baby out in front of him. He yells, "Just shut the F word up," and violently shakes the virtual infant to death live on stream.
It's a horrific moment.
It really is. And reading the chat logs immediately following that event is a study in cognitive dissonance. The viewers are saying things like, "What the hell was he thinking? He's a monster," while completely ignoring the fact that they literally pushed the button to make the baby sick. It feels like the audience uses the haptic suits as a moral shield. Because they know they aren't physically hurting a biological baby, they feel entirely justified in voting for its suffering.
That is a crucial deduction. They use the digital nature of the child to absolve themselves of guilt, but they demand that the parents treat the child as entirely real. We have a highly critical article in our sources by John Russell, the editor-at-large, titled, "Who is Being Manipulated? Them or Us?"
I remember that one.
Yeah, he labels the family experiment a blood sport and a glorified infomercial. Reality television has always thrived on breaking people down, but traditionally the participants are consenting adults engaging with other consenting adults. Here, the so-called victim of the abuse is a piece of code.
Right, technically, no biological entity was harmed when Rufus shook the avatar.
Technically, no, yet because the code is flawlessly designed to evoke humanity's most primal, hardwired protective instincts, the psychological damage inflicted is incredibly real. Rufus is fundamentally traumatized by his own actions.
Because his brain thought it was real.
Yes. The parents are penalized by the public for treating the code as code, yet they are forced by the simulation to treat it as human life. It makes Rufus's actions psychologically devastating to experience, even if the act itself is biologically victimless. It really raises the question, Is the code the victim, or is Rufus the victim of his own manipulated biology?
I lean toward Rufus being the victim of the manipulation, honestly. The show forces a biological reaction and then punishes the biological failure. It's incredibly dark.
Is.
But it's fascinating how different couples react to this pressure. Because if Rufus was destroyed by the emotional reality of the simulation, another couple completely bypasses the emotion in favor of sheer capitalism.
Ah, Cadman and Gabriel.
Yes.
Let's look at Cadman and Gabriel. Because while Rufus was breaking down from the stress of parenthood, Cadman looks at his virtual child and sees nothing but a highly lucrative cash cow. This is the absolute zenith of the influencer economy applied to artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Cadman, who is a 36-year-old intense social media influencer and media commentator, completely strips away the concept of nurturing. He treats their meta-child, a son named River, not as a human being to be raised, but as a digital billboard to be optimized.
It's pure monetization. Gabriel, who is 26 and essentially functions as Cadman's personal assistant and formerly malleable partner, seems to genuinely want a family. But Cadman's strategy is relentless.
Relentless is the word.
The virtual nursery is a revolving door of freebies. Cadman specifically invited potential sponsors to fill their internet home with cost-free products before the show even started. He puts River through 8 different sponsored outfit changes a day just to maximize product placement.
8 outfits.
Right. He even surrenders the child's foundational identity to the public. He allows the audience to vote on the baby's name from a curated, focus-grouped shortlist: Rio, River, or Riker.
And we see the apex of this behavior in month 3. When River hits that developmental leap and becomes a 2-year-old, he naturally starts crawling. Any typical parent, even in a simulation, would celebrate that milestone as a moment of growth.
But Cadman's immediate reaction is pure brand management. He realizes that a mobile toddler means the baby will be moving around the virtual house, creating new camera angles. He instantly sees this as an opportunity to advertise more furniture, different rugs, and digital photo frames in the background.
Oh, so he does.
He literally forces his 2-year-old avatar into a kids' time crafting pod, which the child clearly hates and resists, purely to satisfy a contractual sponsorship agreement. Cadman isn't functioning as a father at all. He's functioning as a creative director managing an asset.
However, we must look beneath the surface of this aggressive monetization to understand the deeply toxic power dynamic between Cadman and Gabriel. Gabriel is increasingly uncomfortable with this level of exploitation. Right. He desires the emotional fresh start that fatherhood, even virtual fatherhood, represents. But he is carrying a massive burden of guilt that Cadman exploits at every turn.
The sources outline this perfectly. Gabriel used to just be Cadman's stand-in at events. He gained some independence, gained some confidence, but then he made a catastrophic mistake that ruined them financially. Their real-world situation is starkly contrasted with their virtual wealth.
Night and day.
Their physical home is stripped bare. The furniture has been repossessed. The swimming pool is drained. The luxury cars have been returned. They are living in this echoey, empty shell of their former life.
Exactly. Cadman is using River to claw back his lost wealth and public status, and he wields Gabriel's past financial ruin like a weapon to keep him compliant and submissive. Cadman justifies his behavior under the guise of protecting their brand for the competition, but it reveals a profound pathological paranoia.
That paranoia leads to one of the most disturbing scenes in the entire source text. Gabriel starts showing very minor, almost insignificant signs of independence. He simply disagrees with Cadman over which colored socks the virtual baby should wear for a stream.
Sock colors.
Right. It's a tiny pushback over socks, but Cadman's reaction is entirely disproportionate. While Gabriel is asleep in the real world, Cadman literally swab tests his mouth for AZ, a drug. He violates his partner's bodily autonomy while he's unconscious, purely to check if Gabriel is relapsing, simply because Gabriel dared to have an opinion about socks.
That moment is a masterclass in control and abuse. Cadman cannot handle the slightest deviation from his script. He views Gabriel not as an equal partner, but as another asset to be managed, much like their meta-child.
Wow.
He is using physical world violations to maintain digital world control. For Cadman, the metaverse is not a place to build a family. It is a desperate, highly calculated financial recovery mission, and Gabriel is just collateral damage if he steps out of line.
It's suffocating. You have to wonder how long someone can live in that kind of panopticon, constantly monitored by both the public and their own partner, before they just break.
Yeah.
But Cadman and Gabriel are at least somewhat transparent about their transactional nature. What's even more terrifying is when the presentation is absolutely perfect.
Oh, here we go.
This leads us to Woody and Tina. On the surface, they are the absolute fan favorites of the show. Woody is a drone pilot. Tina is a euthanasia nurse. Their meta-child is a little girl named Belle. In the metaverse, they have constructed this incredibly beautiful, airy home in the virtual Lake District. They are endlessly patient, deeply loving, and handle every parenting curveball perfectly.
Their public persona is flawless. They project an image of idyllic domesticity that the audience completely buys into. But the structural integrity of that image relies on a massive, horrifying secret they're keeping in the real world.
I still can't get over this part.
While they're playing perfect parents to virtual Belle, for millions of adoring viewers, they have their real, biological teenage daughter, Issy, locked in a soundproofed basement.
It's an unbelievable twist when you read it. The dark irony is staggering. They are engaging in a highly scrutinized, highly public parenting competition, being judged on their empathy and care, while actively committing the ultimate parenting taboo in real life. Issy is 15, about to turn 16, and the sources make it clear that she isn't locked away simply out of a cartoonish cruelty. They are terrified of her.
Yes, the text is very careful to construct Issy not as a typical rebellious teenager, but as something genuinely dangerous. She is frighteningly intelligent, deeply manipulative, and possesses a fiery temper. She has a documented history of destroying things and exhibiting cruel, impulsive behavior.
There is a detail about Woody playing chess with her. He goes down to the basement to play, but the text notes she doesn't play to bond with her father. She plays specifically to crutch him psychologically, to demonstrate her intellectual superiority and dominance over her captor.
She's always plotting.
Always. She is actively, constantly trying to escape. She found a screwdriver behind the boiler and was methodically unscrewing the fence panels in her designated outdoor exercise pen. Woody is so afraid of her escaping that he actually implanted a tracking device in her arm, which she constantly scratches at, trying to dig it out.
If we analyze Woody and Tina through the psychological concept of the do-over child, their motivations become clearer, though no less disturbing. Tina, the sources reveal, is a victim of a severely abusive stepfather. Her foundational understanding of the world is shaped by a terror of violence.
Right.
Issy's inherent hostility and manipulation completely traumatized her parents. Issy robbed them of the normal, safe parenting experience they desperately craved and expected.
I do have to push back slightly on condemning Tina too quickly, though. If society offers an abuse survivor a perfect, trauma-free simulation, a place where they can finally experience the safety they were denied, isn't it almost a biological imperative to choose that over a violent, terrifying reality?
So that's a fair question.
Tina completely avoids the basement. She finds excuses to work extra shifts as a nurse just so she doesn't have to be in the house. She admits in her own internal monologue that her deepest wish is for Issy to be in the metaverse and Belle to be in the real world, so she could just pull the plug on her real daughter and erase her.
I see your point regarding survival instincts, but the cruelty of locking a human being in a basement cannot be mitigated by the desire for a peaceful simulation. The metaverse for Tina and Woody is a sanitized, highly controllable safe haven. When virtual Belle takes her first steps, chasing virtual rabbits in their perfect pergola garden, Tina feels this overwhelming rush of love that she never allowed herself to feel with Issy.
Yeah.
But that love is built on a foundation of profound real-world abuse.
It's true. They are compartmentalizing to an extreme degree.
And that compartmentalization raises a terrifying extrapolation for you, the listener, to consider. What happens when Issy inevitably breaks out? Because a mind that's sharp, confined against its will, does not remain dormant. They are suppressing a highly hostile, hyper-intelligent teenager while simultaneously projecting a fake, perfect life to millions of people online. The cognitive dissonance required to maintain that dual reality is entirely unsustainable. The pressure is building in that basement, and when it finally ruptures, the collision between their hidden physical reality and their public metaverse persona will be catastrophic. You cannot lock reality in a basement forever.
It's a literal ticking time bomb sitting directly beneath their virtual paradise.
Exactly.
This theme of the past refusing to stay buried perfectly transitions us to Dimitri and Zoe. Here we have a couple in their mid-40s raising a meta-child named Lenny. Dimitri's a mortgage advisor. Zoe is a teacher. They have a long history. They were paired 25 years ago by a genetic matchmaking service called Match Your DNA.
That's right.
But unlike Woody and Tina, who actively locked their problem in a basement, Dimitri and Zoe's past is haunting them invisibly.
To really understand Dimitri and Zoe's desperation, we need to contextualize their socioeconomic reality, which the author brilliantly weaves into the background. They live in what is known as a 15-minute city. Now, in this world, that is not a convenience. It is a form of economic quarantine.
Exactly. The world building here is vital. They are essentially tethered to a tiny radius because they couldn't afford a smart marriage upgrade. In this society, a smart marriage grants you lower taxes, better health care, and greater freedom of movement.
It's highly segregated.
Yes, highly segregated by tech and status. They are trapped in an economic no man's land. Winning the £250,000 from the show isn't just a prize for them. It's a lifeline to escape their geographical and societal confines.
But their attempt to use the metaverse as an escape hatch is fundamentally flawed because they are dragging immense unresolved baggage into the simulation. We see a major structural crack in their facade during month 2. Lenny, their virtual toddler, is taking his first steps in their meticulously designed virtual Japanese garden.
It's supposed to be this perfect scene.
Right, he's waddling toward a bird bath. It's a picture-perfect moment. But suddenly, Zoe panics. She scoops the child up abruptly and accidentally calls him Adam. She says, "Come on, Adam."
That slip of the tongue sends the audience into an absolute frenzy. The chat logs light up. Viewers are dissecting the footage frame by frame, debating whether she did it deliberately to garner sympathy or if it was a genuine, traumatic slip.
They don't let anything go.
No. And the public already has a distaste for Zoe due to a past incident where she was misjudged as cold and prickly, so they are primed to assume the worst.
And the show's AI-driven presenter, Autumn Taylor, actively weaponizes this ambiguity. She visits them in the simulation and subtly needles them about their past. She asks pointed questions about whether they were trying to recreate what they had the first time around, explicitly mentioning their unfinished business.
And that unfinished business is literalized in the real world. Zoe receives an anonymous, padded envelope containing sealed court documents. We don't know exactly what the documents say, but they terrify her to her core. She hides them in her loft.
Yes, the loft.
And up in that loft, hidden away in the dark, she has a ladybird-spotted suitcase. She opens it, unwraps a blanket, and the text describes her beaming at something inside that has eyes. Whatever it is, whoever Adam is, Dimitri has absolutely no idea. It's up there.
What's fascinating here is how the metaverse functions in this context. It is not an eraser for the past. It acts as an amplifier for trauma. Dimitri and Zoe thought they were entering a blank slate, a chance to start over and win their freedom. Instead, they walked into a haunted house where their past traumas, represented by the name Adam and whatever is in that ladybird suitcase, inevitably bleed into the simulation.
The ghosts just digitize themselves?
Yes. Technology cannot absolve you of guilt. It merely provides a new, high-definition screen on which to project it.
Technology cannot absolve you of guilt. That is such a profound way to look at it. You can't outrun your own mind no matter how good the VR headset is.
No, you can't.
But what if you aren't running from guilt? What if you are running from something done to you? Let's talk about Hudson, because his story is a completely different paradigm. Hudson is 22 years old, the only single parent in the competition, and he is raising a meta-child named Alice. When the show first launches, the public reaction to him is incredibly cruel and cynical.
The audience's initial reaction is a stark reflection of real-world prejudices and paranoia. They see a young, single man who specifically requested a virtual baby girl, and they immediately assume the darkest possible motives. The chat logs are filled with red flag emojis, and they brutally label him with trending hashtags like pedo. The public narrative is entirely focused on suspicion.
It's vicious. They project all their societal fears onto him, but the audience does not know his backstory, which is arguably the most tragic narrative in the entire source material.
Oh, without a doubt.
At the age of 10, Hudson was a victim of a horrific human trafficking ring. The sources describe him being smuggled across the English Channel in a sinking dinghy in the dead of night. He nearly drowned while trying to save another boy in the water. Following that trauma, his memories of his parents and his past life were entirely clinically wiped.
The clinical nature of his abuse is what defines his current psychology. He survives the water, gets loaded into the back of a sheep truck, and is taken to a sterile, terrifying white facility somewhere in Europe. They treat him entirely as inventory.
It's so hard to read.
They brand the back of his hand with a glowing red QR code. He is subjected to relentless MRI brain scans, daily injections of unknown substances, and constant psychological evaluations. He is stripped of all humanity.
His only solace in that sterile nightmare was an older girl named Eva who slept in the bunk above him. She was the only one who dared to whisper plans of escape in the dark, providing the only human connection in an otherwise robotic environment.
If we analyze Hudson's behavior in the metaverse through the lens of that profound trauma, everything he does becomes deeply moving. Hudson doesn't choose a whimsical fantasy land for his virtual home like the others. He chooses a sanitized, pristine version of New York City. A place with no dirt, no crime, no unpredictability, an environment completely under his control, in stark contrast to the chaotic terror of his childhood.
And his devotion to Alice is absolute. When the audience, again, playing their cruel games votes for Alice to get virtual chickenpox, Hudson doesn't use the mute button. He doesn't log off to take a break. He logs out only long enough to hastily eat drone-delivered meals, and then he goes right back in.
His dedication is incredible.
He spends all his time by her virtual bedside, literally sleeping on the floor of the virtual room in his haptic suit, refusing to leave her alone in her distress.
Autumn Taylor, the AI host, accuses him of trivializing parenthood because he doesn't have a partner to share the burden. But she completely misses the point. By becoming a father to Alice in this perfectly clean, controlled environment, Hudson is engaging in a radical act of reparenting himself.
Yes.
He is providing the unwavering protection, the constant presence, and the unconditional love that he was violently denied as a child in that facility.
There is a specific detail in the text that is just shattering. When Alice has the chickenpox, she's restless. She reaches out in her sleep, and her tiny virtual hand clasps Hudson's fingers tightly. The haptic suit perfectly simulates the warmth and pressure of that grasp.
I remember that part.
And the text notes that as he feels that pressure, he realizes it is the first time anyone has held his hand since Eva did a decade ago.
That moment is the emotional crux of his narrative. He is using a fake world to achieve genuine emotional repair. He is healing real psychological wounds through simulated affection. And slowly, the sheer authenticity of his dedication begins to turn the tide of public opinion.
They finally see it.
The audience, initially so eager to condemn him, starts to see the undeniable care he provides. The narrative shifts, and the hashtag changes to devoted ed. It proves that even in an entirely artificial construct, genuine human empathy can resonate and shift the collective consciousness.
It really is a beautiful storyline amidst so much darkness. It shows that the simulation can be a tool for healing if the intent is pure.
If the intent is pure.
Right. But what happens when the intent is entirely corrupt? What happens when the fake world completely collapses into the real world in the most violent way possible? This brings us to our final couple, Selena and Jaden. And I have to warn you, the listener, the conclusion of their story is incredibly intense and graphic.
The foundation of Selena and Jaden's relationship is built on a devastating biological reality and a massive betrayal. Selena, at 28 years old, went into early menopause. They spent years meticulously saving every penny they had for IVF treatments, hoping to start a family.
But Jaden harbored a catastrophic secret. While Selena was saving, Jaden was secretly blowing over 100,000 pounds on metaverse gambling.
Over 100 grand.
He gambled away their entire life savings in virtual casinos, completely ruining their real-world chances of having a biological child. The financial ruin is what forces them into the family experiment in the first place. They are raising their virtual son, Malachi, under immense pressure. Jaden frames their participation as his way of making things right. They endure the 9 months and win the prize. They can finally afford the IVF.
But Selena's trust in him is fundamentally irreparably broken. The tension is palpable. During month 3, Selena is struggling so much that she seeks out a virtual therapist provided by the show's network. She enters this secure virtual therapy room expecting a confidential session.
Right.
But the room is hijacked. An unauthorized avatar hacks into the feed and reveals a devastating truth to Selena, complete with irrefutable digital evidence.
It's an absolute bombshell. The hacker drops literal receipts into the virtual space: birth certificates, bank statements, encrypted message logs. The hacker reveals that Jaden has 3 real biological children out in the real world: Ben, Esme, and Lucy.
Just shocking. Without Selena ever knowing, Jaden had been advertising himself on a shady metaverse app, selling his sperm to wealthy single women to pay off his staggering gambling debts. And it wasn't a clinical, sterile donation process. The evidence proves he was physically sleeping with these women.
He was completely deceiving her.
He was treating biological fatherhood as a lucrative side hustle to pay off digital debts, all while playing the role of a desperate, infertile husband with Selena on national television. The horrific irony here is multi-layered and deeply twisted. Jaden treated biological fatherhood as a purely financial transaction to fund a virtual baby, with the ultimate goal of winning a digital game to fund a biological baby with his wife. He commodified himself, his genetics, and his marriage.
It's a complete collapse of boundaries.
For Jaden, the lines between what is physical reality, what is a simulated game, and what is a financial transaction have completely and utterly collapsed. He believed he could compartmentalize his sins, keeping his gambling in the metaverse, his infidelity in the real world, and his salvation in the reality show.
But the reality show is about to forcefully collide with the real world. This all culminates in a shocking climax. Selena, armed with this devastating knowledge, takes Jaden on a virtual bike ride in a simulated Scottish woodland. The scenery is gorgeous, peaceful. Autumn Taylor, the AI host, suddenly drops in for a live interview broadcast to millions of viewers.
Perfect timing.
Selena uses this highly public moment to detonate her marriage. She looks at Jaden and exposes his secret to the world. She tells him she knows all about Ben, Esme, and Lucy, and she announces live on stream that she is leaving him.
Jaden's reaction is pure panic. Not because his marriage is over, but because of the rules of the game. He begs her not to leave, screaming that if she quits the show, their virtual son Malachi will be permanently deleted. He accuses her of killing their child. He is entirely consumed by the stakes of the simulation.
And as they're standing in this virtual forest, arguing about the deletion of a virtual life, physical reality violently intrudes. Jaden's avatar suddenly stops speaking. It drops to its knees, clutching its head, and falls face first to the virtual forest floor.
It happens so fast.
Selena, inside her haptic suit, feels a sudden splash of warm, metallic liquid hit her real lips. Confused and terrified, she rips off her VR headset.
And the scene she uncovers is horrific. In the real world, lying on their living room floor, Jaden's skull has been violently crushed in. A woman from a local cafe who the narrative reveals is the biological mother of one of his real-world children, a woman who had previously stalked Selena and delusionally claimed the virtual baby Malachi was hers, has broken into their apartment armed with a cricket bat.
While Jaden was completely blind to the real world, locked inside his VR headset, entirely cut off from his physical senses, begging for the life of his virtual baby, this woman smashed his head in. It is visceral, it is bloody, and it is the ultimate fatal price for losing yourself in a simulation.
It serves as the ultimate cautionary tale of the family experiment. Jaden believed his digital actions existed in a vacuum, but consequences do not respect the artificial boundaries of virtual reality. The absolute vulnerability of being locked into a haptic suit, deliberately depriving yourself of your physical sight and hearing, while your real-world sins quite literally break down your front door, is a terrifying and perfect metaphor for our modern relationship with technology. We blind ourselves to our immediate surroundings in favor of a curated digital existence, ignoring the physical dangers creeping up behind us.
Wow, we have covered so much ground today. Let's try to bring this deep dive to a close. The family experiment presents a world where technology has advanced so far that it allows us to customize our reality down to the exact eye color and growth rate of a digital child. It promises ultimate control. But as we've seen with every single couple, it completely, utterly fails to protect us from our own flawed human nature.
Exactly. The central thesis of the source material is clear. Technology is a mirror, not a cure. Whether you are actively hiding a violent teenager in a locked basement to maintain a perfect online persona, guarding a mysterious ladybird suitcase in a loft because you cannot escape your past, carrying the branded QR code scars of a trafficked childhood, or hiding secret biological children to pay off digital debts, the metaverse does not erase your baggage.
No, it doesn't.
It simply gives you a brand new, incredibly high-definition place to unpack it. You cannot code away the human condition, no matter how advanced the haptics become.
You cannot code away the human condition. That is the perfect encapsulation of everything we've discussed today. And that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We have spent the last hour talking about the extreme dangers of losing yourself in a full sensory immersive simulation. But I want you to look around you right now. Think about the devices surrounding you at this very moment. We use complex algorithms to carefully curate our news feeds, ensuring we only see what we want to see. We use digital filters to curate our faces, erasing our flaws. We use social media platforms to meticulously curate the narrative of our entire lives, presenting only the best, most sanitized angles to an audience of strangers. If Awakening Entertainment knocked on your door tomorrow and offered you a haptic suit, would you put it on to finally escape your reality? Or, if you really think about it, are you, in some small, everyday way, already wearing one?
That is a deeply chilling question to leave on, and one we all need to answer for ourselves.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the family experiment. Keep questioning the reality around you, keep an eye on your digital footprint, and we'll see you next time.